G'day, how are you going? You have tuned into Extra Healthy-ish, the big sister podcast to Healthy-ish. Both podcasts are from Body+Soul, and I'm your host, Felicity Harley. Now, I know it might seem a bit strange that we're starting the year off with a podcast about burnout. I get it. We're not there yet, are we? No. But here at Extra Healthy-ish, we want to give you the tips and the tools and the advice to stop the stress, the exhaustion, the burnout before it becomes dire for your health and well-being. So to get your work life in 2022 off to a healthy-ish start, best-selling author, human performance strategist and CEO of Strive Stronger, Andrew May joins us today to chat through simple ways you can burnout-proof your life. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish. Now, I actually ask this for everyone who comes on the podcast. How do you stay extra healthy-ish in your life?
4 kids, there's the start, Felicity. So taking them to sport, taking them out, playing with them and the dog. And I'm not joking. I think when you have kids or you're in a relationship, building exercise and movement as part of your family is a huge winner. People often say, we don't have time to exercise, but we've just watched every episode of Ted Lasso. I love Ted Lasso. But, get out and move. That's the first one with family. Second one I do a lot of, like you do, a lot of meetings. Now, if you're recording a podcast, you can't walk and record. But as many meetings during the day, Felicity, I walk. In fact, you're doing lots of walking when you wear out heels for males and females.
Impressive.
It's a good sign, and you need a cobbler. They still exist. And the third one is I build exercise. I'm an ex-athlete, jock by trade. It's my drug of choice. If I don't exercise regularly, I twitch and I'm not nice to be around. So build it in with your family, your partner, build it into work, in basic movement, and then find some time to exercise.
I'm sure many of our listeners can identify with you and that twitch. And by the way, I have to let you in on a secret. I do actually record these podcasts standing up.
I stand
up now. I used to sit, but I thought, no, for my health. It was someone I interviewed along the way who said, no, you should just stand. I was like, yes. And I have my emotions come out better and I just think I sound better. Okay, let's leave that aside. We're talking about burnout today. Now, I feel like burnout has changed 2 years into the pandemic. It feels like it's different from before the pandemic, or the definition or the symptoms and how we're suffering. Talk us through what burnout used to be, perhaps pre-pandemic, and what it is now.
Yeah, it's a good observation. I think burnout used to be about hours worked. And people would say, I'm working 70, 80, 90 hours and I'm burning out. Now, I work with some entrepreneurs and some execs and athletes who work 70, 80 hours plus a week, and they're fully engaged. So burnout is not about hours worked. That's the first thing. What we're seeing now is different shades of burnout. And what hybrid work has done, Felicity, is while there's been some real benefits about working from home, but our borders and boundaries have just been eroded, meaning people wake up and they start working, they grab their mobile phone first thing, and they're working at night and on weekends. Now, you didn't do this in the office, so we've got to put some borders back in. And what this leads to, the biggest problem we're seeing during COVID, is we've eroded our surge capacity. And surge capacity is that drop in the system that allows it to restore. So you look at seasons, we have summer and spring and autumn and fall, and we have different seasons, and then they have a purpose. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, tides rise, tides fall. I could talk about this for hours, but there's this rhythmicity in nature. We are now on with static linearity. There's no drop in the system. The reason why we and my business are doing so much around burnout is people aren't recovering at all. To the point that Dr. Tom Buckley, who I work with in our research institute, we explored this and we looked at 5 key factors that make people burnout proof. It is such a topic now where people are going on burnout. First of all, I think most people aren't burnt out. They're fatigued because of the past 2 years. So let's change the narrative. Yeah,
can I just interrupt there? How do you know if you're burnt out or just tired or fatigued? Like is it how can you tell?
Yeah, we look at a scale, and if you Google this as well, we've got a burnout symptoms index, and then there's a lot of psychological metrics around this as well. But in the green, that's when you're firing. Felicity, how are you? Oh, I'm on fire. I'm doing my podcast. I'm loving what I'm doing, connecting with a hubby, connecting with the kids. You're great. Then you get to the next zone, which is yellow. And yellow is there's a little bit of fatigue creeping in, a little bit of, oh, I'm tired and stuff is not as much fun as it was. The real challenge is the orange zone, and that's cynicism. And I think what we're seeing with a lot of people is cynicism. Oh, God, they want me to go back into the office. God, work is so hard. Like, it's actually a joy to have a job and work from home. Yeah. And then we're trying to get people to go back to work. We forget really quickly, right? And the cynicism part is also when everything's hard. I had a client recently, she said, Andrew, taking the groceries in from the supermarket, I burst into tears. So you know there's no capacity left in the system. Now, a lot of people are in that cynical zone, and we can pull them back and freshen them up. When you get into the red zone, that's when you're really burnt out. And that's that physical, that psychological and emotional fatigue. And the psychological research shows, Felicity, if you go too hard in that burnout phase, meaning if you keep going, the only cure for a lot of people is to change industries. That sounds a little bit drastic, doesn't it? But some people push that far that they can't go back to banking or media or finance. They've got to go and do something totally different. I think of it like a piece of toast. If the toast is a little bit burnt, you can scrape it off and still resurrect it and eat it. If you put it in the toaster on setting of 7, pull it out, it's total crisp. It's no good to anyone. So for those who are listening going, hey, I've been a bit cynical, I've lost the joy, I've lost the spark. It's not about working more, it's actually about recovering smarter. And we'll go through those 5 tips as well.
I like that analogy of the toast. That's brilliant, because you can almost think, okay, so where I'm at on the toast scale, maybe you should rename it the toast scale, Andrew.
Oh, we might. Copyright to Felicity Harley, yes.
I'll let you have it. We'll be back after this short break with more from Andrew. So let's go back to that surge capacity. How, if we feel like we're just not getting that refresh, that time out, how can we get, because it all can be so overwhelming when you're burnt out. Where do I go? Where do I start? What do I look? How can we get more of that refresh?
Yeah, I'll give you the science on it. If I get too technical, just give me the sort of the wrap up on it. But what happens when we're on technology doing Zoom meetings all day? This is one of the reasons why we're fatigued. They've done research at Stanford. A virtual meeting is twice as cognitively draining as a meeting where you've got people in the room. Yeah, so it's draining our brains twice as much. So your brains are in beta all day when we measure brainwaves. So you've got to go alpha. Alpha is when you are a little bit more creative. Alpha is when your brain patterns slow down. And I call this the 5 Bs: on a bus, reading a book, in the bath, riding a bike, or sitting on the beach. When you're writing a book, Felicity, or you're thinking about an interview and you go, oh, eureka. It's not when you're in the thick of it. It's when you drop that brainwave pattern. So that's the first thing. We're not getting out of beta and we're not going alpha. The second thing, when you're on technology all day, you're wired up your sympathetic nervous system. We've got this central nervous system that needs a balance between on, stress, sympathetic, and off, parasympathetic. So those two things, we need to calm the brain and we need to relax the body. And people listening to this, a wine or a beer every night after work and looking at your mobile phone on Netflix doesn't get your body into parasympathetic and doesn't get your brain into alpha. So all the things we're doing that we think we're recovering are actually winding our system up even more and more. And that's why we're so fatigued.
How do you get into parasympathetic?
I drink beer and watch Netflix. Just seeing whether you're listening. I have to build in strategies for my crazy monkey mind. So my partner and I, we do yoga every Tuesday night. We have a date night. I dislike yoga, but I love what yoga does to me. Yeah, like I love running, swimming, weights and cycling and all that stuff. But I do yoga every week. I also take the dog for a walk, like purposely without my mobile phone, and I don't pee on the every bit of pavement like he does, but I look around, and it's amazing. If you look at animals, they're totally absorbed in nature. The other thing I do is I do listen to calm when I've had a really busy day, because I teach this like you do, Felicity. We don't always practice it when you're busy.
Hell no.
But I find after a busy day, and I do lots of virtual presentations now with global clients. So I might be presenting 11 p.m. at night, 1 a.m. in the morning. And I've just been, and this is ironic, I was working with Rabobank recently on relaxation and how leaders get alpha and parasympathetic, and I'm lying in bed at 2 a.m. in the morning.
The irony.
I've been in the studio, lights are on. So I've taught myself to relax quick. And the best way for me is to listen to calm, have someone in my ears for 10 or 15 minutes and switch off. So they're the things I do, some big things and little bits of micro recovery. A lot of people think, oh, I haven't got time to go to yoga or meditation. Do some breathing. Breathe for 5 minutes a day will change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. The power of the breath. Hey, now you say we can burnout proof our lives. Talk us through how we do this exactly.
Yes, I did this with Dr. Tom Buckley. I'll give you the 5 and then you dig into which ones you would like to explore more. The first one is purpose alignment. 2 is active recovery. 3 is restorative sleep. 4 is physiological capacity. And 5 is social connectedness. Dr. Tom and I did a literature review and he did most of the heavy lifting. He's associate professor at Sydney Uni. Now, the order starts with number 1, purpose alignment, and then 2, 3, 4, 5 can go in any order. So let's start with number 1. People who have a clearly articulated purpose live longer. Fact, people with a clearly articulated purpose bounce back faster from adversity. People with a clearly articulated purpose earn more money. People with a clearly articulated purpose are much more interesting to speak to at dinner parties than the banker or the athlete that just talks about their job.
There we go. How do we get it? How do we get clear on our purpose? In a nutshell, I know this could be a whole separate podcast, but
yeah, I could talk about this for an hour. Get some coaching or get some support around it because I had to get out of my own way. It took me 3 or 4 months of coaching with a guy, Richard Burton, who's a purpose expert for this, because I was teaching other people, get a purpose, but stumbling over mine. Now, that's the harder way. You've got to do the work, the reps and sets. To start with, though, I'd ask people, what lights you up? When are you in flow? When you look at your day, either personal or professional life, where does time transcend? What do people say you do best? And then some people go, oh, that's got nothing to do with my job. Great, supplement. Some of us, the lucky few, might find that calling. I heard an American speaker say this recently, your vocation needs to be like a vacation. I'm like, sort of some truth to it, but not many people live like that. Look at what work gives you. It can give you a job. It can give you connection. If you don't get all of your stuff, supplement outside. Join a swim club, join a gardening group or a community group. So find out what you love, what lights you up, and make sure you do it every week, minimum.
I love that. What lights you up? Number 2, was that move? Was there movement
2 was
in
active
there?
recovery.
Active recovery.
We've covered that lightly, but that's the brain, reducing the brain, so dropping the brainwave frequencies out of beta, and parasympathetic. So some great activities for parasympathetic. I used to run, I was a middle distance runner, and I choose my words carefully, behind the Kenyans. I ran a lot behind the Kenyans in training and racing. And the Kenyans have a beautiful Swahili word, hapa, which has 2 meanings. Now, so it's about being present. And slowly. So the Kenyans would race and then they'd sleep and recover. We'd race and we'd study and go out and date and try and build businesses and wonder why we chased the Kenyan backsides. So every day build in 5 to 10 minutes of hapa, breathing, the dog walk I mentioned before, an app. It could be just a bath, an Epsom salt bath. Or one of my clients said to me, it's getting her nails done every week. That's her hapa time. And it also gets her off the mobile phone. So
yes.
Whatever it is, that's active recovery. And it's active, so it implies it's not lying down. In the research, they'll call this NDSR, non-deep sleep recovery. We'll keep it a bit lighter and just call it active recovery.
And number 3 was sleep though, right?
Restorative sleep,
yes.
Yeah. And how many people have you interviewed in your media career who've said, wow, I changed my life when I got more sleep. So, sleep, you're more productive. Middle-aged men, I get them to sleep their way to weight loss. They can't believe it. They wake up and their body's functioning like it's meant to. I won't go into detail. You know what I'm talking about. Sleep from everything, relationships, EQ, longevity. Buy on sleep.
Yeah, the cornerstone to good health in my eyes.
Absolutely. And for those entrepreneurs or aspiring leaders who get sort of caught into the whole hustle syndrome, and there's a lot of people who talk about this, successful business people, I had to hustle and work all my life and don't sleep. It's absolute rubbish. It sets you up for failure. Anyone who's built success, it's not overnight. It's a decade or decades in the making, and you can't do that without proper sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And also sets you up for lifestyle related diseases down the track.
Absolutely. Google Margaret Thatcher and sleep, and everyone used to say, oh, Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
Yeah. She only sleeps 3 or 4 hours a night, and then basically retired, and I love Margaret Thatcher as a female leader, one of the like a true female leader back in the 70s and 80s. Go Margaret, but pushed herself so far, so hard that when she retired, she spent years trying to get her health back and never got it back.
Yeah. Now, just quickly, what are the last two you had there?
Physiological capacity, which is big words for just exercise. Move your body. Move. And the basics, I've heard you in lots of interviews, get your 10,000 steps. And for those people saying, I don't like exercise, or I don't have time, get off your bum. No, do podcasts standing up, Felicity, stuff like that.
A simple walk is, I think one thing that we probably undervalue is just how nourishing a simple walk can be for the body.
Oh, it's amazing. And you think better. I do nearly every sales meeting walking, and especially, well, men and women, but especially men, coaching sessions that I do face-to-face, we always start with a walk. And guys open up so much more. It's like, why cycling or driving in a car is better for men to open up. We freak out when we look at each other's eyes, something weird about evolution with men. But walking and building physiological capacity. The other thing on that is nutrition and making sure you cut back on the alcohol. Because what a lot of people do when they're feeling tired and fatigued and burnt out is we soothe our emotions at night. And that has an adverse effect. So 3 to 4 alcohol-free days a week minimum if you really want to get this stuff into practice. And that's a habit.
And the last one?
Social connectedness. No man or woman is an island. And while we have been socially distancing, it doesn't mean we need to be socially disconnected. Relationships, nurture them. In fact, research out last year, Felicity, said that loneliness is worse for your health than smoking.
Yeah, and I think it's actually gone through the roof, especially for millennials. A lot of people who listen to this podcast.
Yeah, and also globally. In the UAE, they have a Minister for Happiness now. And this tells you a lot about countries of origin. And the UK has a Minister for Loneliness. I wonder what we call it in Australia. But those two governments have put considerable resources now towards loneliness. And it's a true problem now around the world.
So just finally, how can we flourish in 2022 instead of burning out? I think you've given us some great tips on, how to safeguard ourselves in that way. How can we flourish?
Oh, I like the question. That wasn't one that I was expecting.
I know.
It's
I just
nice.
like dropping things in there.
Yeah, good. You true interviewer, you. 2 things. Put those 5 principles into practice. You've got to put them into practice because it makes you burnout proof. The second thing is change your mindset. And I'd go with second thing first. Yeah, it's been challenging. Yeah, it's been tough, but we're still alive and we've still got a wonderful country we live in. We've still got wonderful opportunities with career. We've still got wonderful relationships. For anyone who's thinking, I can't wait until it goes back to what it was, it's not going to happen. It is what it is now. So have that beginner's mind, or the Buddhist word shoshin. Start with a blank slate and then recraft. Let go of what's happened. And talk to anyone in trauma or recovery on this. You've got to process what happened, but don't let that alter your future.
Yeah, well said. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish to share your wisdom.
I'm going to stand up now when I do podcasts. It's fun learning. Thank you.
If you do want those steps in your face to remind you each day of how you can burnout proof your life, I will leave a link to Andrew's website in this show notes. If you want more from us, remember Extra Healthy-ish, we publish a new episode for your wonderfully healthy ears every morning, Monday to Thursday. For more, head to bodyandsoul.com.au or join the conversation via Body and Soul on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks so much for listening, and if you have a moment, we'd be so grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe to this podcast. And until tomorrow, stay extra healthy-ish.